Welcome back to another day of knowledge. Yesterday I started off the knowledge video with a picture of Flatbush, and today we are going to be doing a review. During this review, we're going to be doing some quick review and recalling important information on what we learned in this domain. We'll start off with a video, a BrainPop video of Lewis and Clark. Then we will move forward to reviewing the map. Then after the map, we will be doing some riddles. And lastly, we will be doing a stop and draw of the vocabulary words. Everything that you use during this read aloud or create during this review, you can use it during your exam tomorrow. That means also if you have any notes of anything from the previous lessons, you can use that for your test tomorrow as well.
Where are you going, Moby? You're going to follow the Lewis and Clark Trail. What was the Louisiana Purchase? In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson signed the Louisiana Purchase. With this agreement, the United States bought France's territory in North America for $15 million. A territory is an area of land under the control of a government or a group of people. The Louisiana Territory covered an area that is now 14 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Right, Moby. The Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States. Not much was known about the new land, so President Jefferson assigned Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore the area. What was the Corps of Discovery? Lewis and Clark organized a group of explorers called the Corps of Discovery. Altogether, there were 33 men. And 1 dog. They planned an expedition to travel across the Louisiana Territory. An expedition is a journey with a specific goal. Their goal was to find a path to the Pacific Ocean and meet the native people along the way. Clark's main job was to make maps of the area and to navigate or direct their path. Lewis's main job was to gather information about the land, plants, and animals. In the spring of 1804, the Corps of Discovery left St. Louis and set out on the Missouri River. What happened during Lewis and Clark's expedition? The journey up the river was difficult. The river was rough in some places, and they often had to row against the currents. Along the way, Lewis and Clark met many different Native Americans, including the Oto and the Missouri people. As a sign of friendship, Lewis and Clark gave the leaders peace medals. Some Native people, such as the Teton Sioux, did not trust the explorers. They didn't speak the same language, so there were a lot of misunderstandings. In October of 1804, the explorers built a fort in an area that is now part of North Dakota. They met Toussaint Charbonneau, a French-Canadian fur trapper, and his wife Sacagawea, who was a member of the Shoshone people. They spoke the different languages of the area's native people, so Lewis and Clark asked them to be their interpreters. An interpreter is someone who translates one language into a different one. Charbonneau, Sacagawea, and their baby joined the expedition and began traveling west. Months later, the explorers came across what is now the Great Falls in Montana. They had planned to hike with all of their heavy supplies and boats to go around the falls. Later, the explorers met members of the Shoshone people and wanted to trade for horses. Sacagawea understood the Shoshone language, so she acted as an interpreter. The Shoshone traded the horses and provided guides to help the Corps of Discovery cross the Rocky Mountains. They hiked mountains that were steep and snowy. The explorers ran low on food and had to eat tallow, which is used to make candles. They were tired, cold, and many were sick. Finally, the explorers reached what is now the Columbia River in Washington State. They followed its path, and it led them to their goal. In November of 1805, the explorers reached the Pacific Ocean. They built a fort near what is now Astoria, Oregon. Lewis and Clark had traveled over 4,000 miles. Their trail went through an area that is now covered by 11 states. A few months later, they made the long, difficult trip back to St. Louis. Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery finally returned in September of 1806. They were considered heroes. Their expedition took almost 2.5 years, and they traveled over 8,000 miles. What did people learn from the expedition? Lewis and Clark kept journals during their expedition and shared what they learned. They had recorded plants and animals they had never seen before, and noted different landforms and weather patterns. They also learned about different Native American groups and started peaceful relationships with many of them. Clark had drawn 140 maps during the journey, and other explorers used them for their expeditions. Lewis and Clark had found a passage to the Pacific, and soon people began moving west. Moby, I think it might take a while to follow Lewis and Clark's footsteps. You're back already?
Now we're going to transition into reviewing the map. We'll be talking about different features and how to identify them. Here we go. So the map is broken up into different parts. So the area in the green represents the American territory that we had at that time, which includes the 13 colonies and the Appalachian Mountains. If you notice the little hill-like features, those are the Appalachian Mountains. Then I want to continue moving west or to your left, and you'll notice the Mississippi River. The red circle is the mouth of the river, which is the point of the river that opens up into a large ocean. Then, if you go up north, you'll notice the Missouri River. The Missouri River is colored in purple, and it runs to and through the Mississippi River. Then, if we continue moving to the west or to the left, you'll notice the brown area, which is the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains are drawn similar to the Appalachian Mountains because they have those hill-like features, but it's just to show that they represent mountains. Now, this blue area is very, very important because this blue area represents one of the goals that Lewis and Clark had during the exploration. Their goal was to find an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean. This blue area represents the Pacific Ocean. If you zoom out and look at the map, you'll notice that the green area where the colonies are is really far from the Pacific Ocean, and their job was to explore the land and find a route. Last but not least, now we're noticing the area that is not covered in blue that's near the colonies, and that is the Atlantic Ocean. So they wanted to find a route from one ocean to another ocean. So you can pause this video, rewind it, review it if you want to remember the different features of the map that represents Lewis and Clark's exploration. Now let's move on to another part of the review. Now we're going to do some riddles that's going to help us review some important content from the read-alouds. I am Shoshone and was a guide and translator for Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery. Who am I? If you guess Sacagawea, that is correct. Now let's move on to the next riddle. I am a piece of land or territory that President Jefferson brought from France that doubled the size of the United States. What am I called? If you guessed the Louisiana Territory, that is correct. It's the whole entire area that you notice in the map that is in the green. So it's in between the Appalachian Mountains, not even the Appalachian Mountains. It's in between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains. Next riddle. We were hired by Thomas Jefferson to explore the Louisiana Territory. Who are we? If you guessed Lewis and Clark, that is correct. Now let's move on from riddles to our next part, which is Stop and Jot, which is all about vocabulary. Now we're going to do another activity called Stop and Draw, where it's all about and focused on vocabulary. So I will be reviewing key parts of the read aloud and saying definitions, and then your job is going to be to stop and jot or draw something that reminds you of the specific vocabulary word displayed. Here we go. Here's what you need. You will need a sheet of paper and a pencil, and here is how I want you to organize each image. There are a total of 11 vocabulary words. So first, I want you to write your name at the top of the paper, and then a line. On top of the line, you'll be writing the vocabulary word. Then under it, you'll be drawing a short image. You're going to continue this process throughout until you are done with all of the vocabulary words and all the images. This is really important because you can use this as a tool to help you. Here we go. Word number 1 starts in 3, 2, 1. The Appalachian Mountains formed a natural barrier and blocked movement from one side of the mountain to the other. The word is barrier. Say it with me, barrier. So a barrier is something that blocks movement from one place to another. A barrier can be natural or man-made. Now it's time for you to pause the video. Now you draw something that represents the word barrier for you. When you're done drawing, you can write the word barrier on the top. Pause the video. When you unpause the video, I'll be moving on to the next word. The next word is pioneers. Say it with me, pioneers. In the read aloud, these pioneers asked Daniel if he could show them the way across the Appalachian Mountains. Pioneers are the first people who live in a new place. Pioneers often lead the way for others to follow. So now, to stop and draw an image that represents pioneers. Pause the video. When you are done pausing the video, I'll be moving on to the next word. In the read aloud, you heard James Monroe knew that the city of New Orleans sat near the mouth of the Mississippi River. Say the word mouth with me. The mouth of a river is a place where the river empties into the ocean or a larger body of water. Stop and draw. When you're done drawing, unpause the video to move on to the next word. The next word is purchase. In the read aloud, you heard Thomas Jefferson say, I want you to go to France and offer to purchase the city of New Orleans from Napoleon. Say the word with me, purchase. Purchase means to buy something. So I want you to stop and draw something that you think represents the word purchase. Pause the video. When you unpause the video, we will move on to the next word. The word is brave. In the read aloud, you heard, I need the leader of these explorations to be someone I can trust, someone very brave and very smart. Say the word brave with me. Brave. Yes, brave. When someone is brave, it means he or she shows courage and is not afraid to do something, even if it may be dangerous or frightening. Now it's time to stop and draw. Pause the video. When you unpause the video, we'll move on to the next word. The word is expedition. In the read aloud, you heard Lewis and Clark finally put together a team of trusty men who were daring and brave enough for the expedition. Say the word expedition with me. Expedition. An expedition is a group of people traveling together for a specific purpose, like exploring. Often an expedition goes on an adventurous journey. Now it's time for you to stop and draw. Pause the video. When you unpause the video, it'll be time for the next vocabulary word. Word is honored. In the read aloud you heard, Clark knew that the Teton Sioux honored courage. Say the word honored with me. Honored. Yes, honored. When you honor something, you respect or admire it. The Native Americans in the read aloud honored courage, meaning that they respected and admired people with courage. Now, pause the video, draw something that represents the word honor to you. When you unpause the video, we'll move on to a new word. The word is protection. In the read aloud you heard, across the river from one of the Mandan villages, the explorers built a wooden house and surrounded it with log walls 18 feet high for protection. Protection is something that keeps you safe. So I want you to pause the video and draw something that represents the word protection. When you are done pausing the video, I will move on to the next word. The word is record. In the read aloud you heard, nevertheless, the Western was so important to the lives of Native Americans that Lewis and Clark knew they must gather samples and record its many uses. Say the word record with me. Yes, record. When you record something, you write it down the information in order to remember it or share it. Now I want you to pause the video. I want you to stop and draw something that represents the word record. When you're done pausing the video, I'll move on to the next word. In the read aloud, you heard Private Shannon say no one could complain that the trip had been dull. Say the word dull with me. Yes, dull. Dull means boring. So I want you to stop and draw something that represents the word dull. When you're done drawing, unpause the video to move on to the next word. In the read aloud, you heard, when the explorers finally saw the Pacific Ocean, some of the men cheered. Others stood in silent contentment. The word is contentment. Say it with me, contentment. When someone is feeling contentment, they are feeling happy and satisfied. So now I want you to pause the video and draw something that represents the word contentment. When you are done drawing the word contentment, you have completed the exit ticket for today. Let's move on to see how to submit this exit ticket. Exit ticket. When you are done with your vocabulary stop and jot, take a picture and upload to Class Dojo. Again, when you are done with your vocabulary stop and jot, take a picture and upload that picture to Class Dojo. So don't forget, when you're done with your work, I want you to upload to Class Dojo.